Hey, man. So, obviously, you know I love the whole militia concept, but it's really been on my mind here as of late, and I don't have to tell you all why. And the more there's so many things. The more I think about it. Everyone wants to know when will we rise? And you know what? We're not ready yet. Two things need to happen. Obviously, the first is we need to get more men. And the other is we have to become riflemen. We have to find men who are riflemen. The forces that are arrayed against us have drones. They have fully automatic weapons. They have grenade launchers. They have all kinds of crazy things. And we can't defeat their volume of fire, which means our fire has to be more accurate and more expertly. Maybe not expertly is not the right word. More judiciously. More judiciously aimed and launched than theirs. And that means we have to be riflemen. And you know what? Of course, that's going to appeal to me because that is within the American tradition. We have a tradition in America of riflemen. If you go back even to 1776, and there was of all the different storylines, opposing storylines. American versus British. Blue coats versus red coats, or colonialists versus redcoats. One of the biggest versus storylines there was the Kentucky rifle versus the musket, and even back then the rifle was a very prominent part of American life, and they were riflemen. I've read stories about here locally they would have shooting competitions, and they would use these really elaborate hand-painted targets where they would paint, sometimes they'd paint the king and whatnot on these wood planks, and then they would shoot as far as 200 yards, as one I read about here local, with black powder flintlocks. And this was backwoods Georgia, northeast Georgia, Appalachians. We're technically in the Appalachian Mountains, and they had the rifles, and they had that tradition of being riflemen. So I keep looking off at that's one of my ums. When I'm trying to gather my thoughts, I look off in the distance like something's moved. One of my little tails. So what's that mean? What's it mean to be a rifleman? Well, for those of us who are in the military, we have a lot of that program downloaded into our brains, and we don't even realize it. And we were taught a lot of things that we don't understand the mechanics of, about ballistics and point of aim, point of impact, and we don't even realize it. Now, we let those skills drift. I have not shot over 100 yards myself in decades. Well, since I left the Marine Corps was the last time I shot over 100 yards. Although, you know what, if you're accurate at 100 yards, I'm okay with that. But anywho, for those of you who weren't ever in the military, here's a really good resource. You all know Reed. If you know me, you know Reed. Marine. Fellow Marine. Actually, he was a dragon gunner, which is MOS 0351. It's an infantry MOS, but it's an anti-tank MOS. He fired the dragon. Well, you know what? He might have fired the Predator. He's a little younger than I was. When I was in the 0351s, we would just call them 51s, fired the dragon. But I think they've switched to the Predator since then, and I don't know where he fell in that split. I'm a 52. We fired the tow missile. It's the same general anti-tank missileman MOSs, but we had a bigger missile, much bigger missile. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay, but this is great. I've been leafing through this. I haven't finished reading it yet, but everything I've read so far, boom. Hopefully I'll finish it soon, and I'll do a whole review on it. Not that I'm qualified to, but you get this. Hoo-yah. Not only does he talk about being a rifleman and some of the skills and drills and whatnot, a lot of skills and drills, but he gives you a lot of history and a lot of the intellectual underpinnings. But the other thing is, man, we just got to practice. We've got to set standards of marksmanship for ourselves. Ideally, 300 yards. That's the Army's standard qual, is 300 yards. In the Marine Corps, we do 500. Just saying. Don't feel like you're inadequate just because you are. Oh, I'm kidding. Stop that. No, stop that. Don't do that. I'm kidding. But I really think 300 yards would be ideal. But most of us don't have access to 300-yard ranges. Most of us are stuck going to the national forest ranges, and you know, they top out at 100 yards. Sometimes they top out at 75 yards. But we need to develop a culture of being riflemen, where we are proud of our marksmanship, where we are proud of our knowledge of ballistics and bullet drop, and we know what bullets work in our rifles, and we know how to deploy our rifles in a tactical setting. Hunters have a. I did it again. I was trying to gain. I was trying to regain my thoughts. Tactical setting, like there was one right over there. It's a tactical setting, right? No, I'm sorry. I just have bad habits. I'm a poor communicator. But hunters, you know, like hunters do, tactical hunters. Which is the only thing a sniper is. I mean, a sniper is a tactical hunter. Anywho, that's not. I did it again. Anywho, did I catch my thoughts? We really need to. Those are the two things we need to do: get men, become riflemen, and those of us who used to be riflemen. And I used to be a decent shot. I qualified expert in the Corps, but those skills are long gone. That's a perishable skill. So I've got most of the head knowledge to accomplish that again, but I don't have the muscle memory anymore. I would have to sit down and spend a week on the range. You know, the Appleseed Project's really good for this too. And that becomes a problem, because we got to practice, and we got to have ranges to practice at, which are not cheap. And look at this. I just bought this today. That's what made me think about this. This is just regular old Fiocchi full metal jacket boat tail bullet. 55 grain, nothing special. 50 round box, $40. I just paid 80 cents a round for nothing but Fiocchi 55 grain full metal jacket. And you know what? I was happy to get it, because last night on my way home from work, I stopped at a gun store down in Athens, Franklin's. It's kind of a well-known gun store in the area. M855, regular old green tip, not M855A1 or any of that craziness, just the regular old M855, the green tip standard military round, $1 a round. 20 round box was $20, $19.99. Ammunition is through the damn roof, and that really complicates this. Now I haven't seen in here that Reed has a Snapin training. I'm sure he does. I've heard him talk about it in his videos. We need to start getting back to developing that kind of stuff. Snap-ins, snap-in. That was, we would have targets, little tiny targets, and then we'd get so far away from them, and we'd practice breath control and trigger squeeze and breaking the trigger at the bottom of our exhale and all that stuff, and we would just do that for hours on those Snap-in barrels, they called them. They were barrels painted white and had all the different targets, the dog target and the able target painted all around them. Really little tiny. We got to get back to that kind of stuff, because 80 cents a round for a Fiocchi full metal jacket, that's insane. This is part of their plan too, by the way. They'll let us keep our rifles as expensive paperweights if they can control the flow of ammunition. We have got to expand our understanding of the Second Amendment, man. We have to expand our understanding of the Second Amendment. I will not get off on a rabbit trail. I had one of my buddies found the channel recently, a guy I grew up with, and he said, well, you lose your train of thought all a bunch, so I don't want to follow that rabbit rail. Dadgummit. This is why I look off into the distance. Rabbit trail. But if we want to be effective as an American militia, we've got to become American riflemen again. We don't have machine guns. We don't have drones. We don't have grenades and HEDP and flares and all that stuff. We have our rifles, which means we have to be good with our rifles, which means we have to be riflemen. There you go, man. We appreciate you. God, 9 minutes again. I did it again with all those pauses out into space. We live in interesting times. Our times would be a lot less interesting if we were all riflemen. The American riflemen. Appreciate you, man.